evening, everyone. Welcome to all the candidates and those attending in person and those online to the Iron Range Area Candidate Forum. My name is Jim Ramses, the editor of the Mesabi Tribune. We cover a large area from Nashua, Keewatin to Hoy Lakes, and thought it would be a good idea to get the candidates together to share their views as the general election quickly approaches. The election, no doubt, will prove to be important for all of northeastern Minnesota. I hope you enjoyed tonight's event. Now here is Ida Rukavina of RAMS.
Thank you, Jim. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Candidate Forum, sponsored by the Mesabi Tribune, Grand Rapids News Herald, and the Range Association of Municipalities and Schools. My name is Ida, and I serve as the director of the Range Association of Municipalities and Schools. We call it RAMS for short. Our organization is made up of over 60 public sector units of local government in the Taconite assistance area, the Iron Range. Our board consists of 22 elected officials from towns, cities, and school boards across the region, in addition to 2 superintendents. RAMS has been around for well over 80 years. The mission of our organization is to promote the general welfare and economic development of the cities, towns, and school districts on the Iron Range. You all know this. The Range is truly a unique place. Known for our abundant natural resources, including timber, taconite, and other precious minerals. The Iron Range has a long history of strong political representation in the Minnesota legislature. With the retirement of long-serving public servants, Senator Tom Bach, Representative Dale Lewick, Senator Carrie Rood, and the late Senator David Tomasoni, there are going to be new faces representing our region at the Capitol. We want to ensure that our region has strong voices representing us. This is the reason that we're hosting tonight's forum, making sure that our citizens have the chance to hear directly from the candidates about their goals and visions for the future of the people and the communities of the Iron Range. We thought it was fitting to do this with the Mesabi Tribune and the Grand Rapids News Herald because newspapers bring a voice and bring information to our citizens so that they can make informed decisions. I want to thank the Hibbing Public Schools, the school board, Superintendent Aldrich, and the community for hosting us tonight in this historic and beautiful auditorium. And now to introduce our moderator for the night, Blois Olson. Blois has been described as Minnesota's barometer in measuring the mood and mindset of the state's residents. He's been analyzing the politics of the state for nearly 30 years, including 23 as a political analyst for WCCO Radio. He's the founder of Fluence Media, his flagship morning take daily tip sheet, which was founded in 2010, and radio segment are a must-read and listen for business and political leaders in the Midwest. Fluence also publishes and produces newsletters on business, agriculture, and law. His analysis and clients have been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Politico, the New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, and numerous other outlets across the nation. And now let's give a rousing Range welcome to our moderator for the evening, Blois Olson.
Thanks, Ida. It's great to be here. They asked me to do this, and then they said it was going to be in this auditorium. And I will tell you, I will literally hit Worthington to Moorhead to the Range at least once or twice through this whole cycle, and this one's been circled on my calendar, so thanks. We have 4 candidates for the Minnesota Senate. They also have a deadline tonight. We have another panel after this, so we'll move it along. We don't have a timekeeper, but if I say time or I give the signal, I know you're politicians, but we'll try to keep this thing moving. And we're going to start out with kind of an opening statement. We'll just start here with Grant. We'll go down the row. First of all, who are you and why are you running in a minute or two?
Great. Well, thank you so much, Blois and RAMS and Mesabi Tribune and everyone else that sponsored this debate. And thank you all for coming. I'm Grant Hochschild, and I'm thrilled to be running for the Minnesota State Senate in District 3. I'm running because around here we go out of our way to have each other's back. And it's my theory that we do that not to make ourselves feel good inside. We do it because we know that life is that much easier. My life is easier knowing that North Shore miners have extended unemployment with the idled mine. My life is easier knowing the family down the street also gets paid family leave like I did when my daughter Isla was born. My life is easier knowing that our Northland schools are supported from the Iron Range, International Falls, up the North Shore, but also where I'm from in Hermantown in the southern part of the district. You know, when this seat opened up and my opponent got in the race, I got a lot of calls from stakeholders, independent folks, and labor expressing concerns about the clout that we're losing in the region, like Ida talked about. And, you know, I think we need an independent voice that's going to stand up for the Northland and fight for the things that are important. That includes ensuring that we continue to get our fair share of the Taconite tax for our schools, making sure that we keep that money here in the Northland, and that we're fighting for all of our communities, not just one particular area. So I look forward to this rigorous debate, and you know, I'm really focused on bringing my experience to the table. I've worked in the U.S. Senate, I've worked in the Department of Agriculture, I've always fought for rural communities because we provide the steel, the timber, the hardworking people, the manufacturing, the energy, and all the things that are critically important to our communities, and we should be proud of that. And we need a state senator that brings that experience. So I have both this federal experience, state experience, but I'm also a local city councilor in Hermantown, where I fought for paved trails at no cost to our residents. I fought for $4 million in the bonding bill with Senator Bach that otherwise wouldn't have been there. So thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Andrea Zupanusic.
Yep, you're wrong.
Well, as a voice, you know.
So hi, I'm Andrea Zupanusic. I have been mayor of Babbitt for 8 years now, and you know what? I have raised my family here. My husband is on the fourth generation owner of his family business, which has been here for over 105 years. I've raised my children here, and I'm a new grandmother. Plus, I opened up my own business. So, being a hockey mom, my youngest is a boy, and not that that matters, but we played hockey throughout the district. And over the years, I've been able to pretty much touch bases with every single person, not every single person, but in every town in the area, and the concerns are the same. And as I've been obviously door knocking and going into this new journey in my own life, it's really exciting, and it just confirms to me that I'm doing the right thing. I see the Iron Range, as well as District 3 as a whole, as just ready to boom again. We have lost our population has gone down, our schools have gone down as far as kids attending, and I want us to see where we were again. We have so much potential here, and we can be the leader in so many things, and that's what I want to bring back to the state of Minnesota, as well as our district. I want to see us grow. I want us to show everyone how we can do it right, like we have been for 150 years in mining with clean water. I have met with both the Obama administration and the Trump administration. I've testified in Washington, St. Paul, as well as in Wisconsin when they were trying to, get rid of the moratorium on mining. We have so many critical minerals in here that we can be the leaders, and that's what I want us to be. I want us to be proud, I want us to be loud, and I want us to stand forward and showing how we can do it, and we can do it the right way like we have been doing. We have some of the cleanest water in the state of Minnesota. Now, I'm actually a product of a mining layoff, and people just think that it's the miners that are laid off. I started my own business. My job was eliminated due to the mining layoff back in 2003, it would have been two. I base everything on when I was pregnant, so that was with the boy. And I started a brand new career. So pretty scary, went to school for one thing. Now all of a sudden I'm starting a whole new career at the age of whatever age I was at that time. And that's not always easy, but you know what, that just shows the perseverance we have up here. And started with one office in the crash of the real estate cycle. And on top of that, one office, one agent, 2 part-time agents. I am now at 4 offices, opening my 5th, and I have 18 agents. And so, you know what? Things happen for a reason, and we are cycling, and the range can go forward again and be the leaders that we're meant to be. So vote for me, Andrea Zupanusic.
Ben Denucci.
Hello everyone, my name is Ben Denucci. I'm a 5th generation Iron Ranger. My family's lived in Nashwauk for 115 years. My grandfather's worked at National Steel, as did my dad before he became a teacher. I am the son of retired educators. I am a volunteer firefighter, a former mayor, a current county commissioner, and a small business owner. I own 2 mom and pop union shop grocery stores, and those stores were going to close. I know how important these types of businesses are to our communities. So I put a team together, kept the doors open, kept the lights on, and kept 30 people working good paying union jobs. I don't just talk about keeping communities thriving, I've taken action to do it. I've done my part as a local business owner. I know the challenges our businesses face, and I know the resources they require. For the last 8 years, I've gained valuable experience working in local government as a mayor and as a county commissioner. I've fought for good paying local jobs like those in the mining industry. I've worked to pass a referendum that has replaced the oldest school in the state of Minnesota. And for the 4th year in a row, I got a 0% levy increase passed in Itasca County. Running for the state senate is a natural extension of work I've already been doing. And I know times are tough. I talk to people every day who struggle to put food on the table, put gas in their cars. It doesn't help when the corporations our workers are helping to make rich won't come to the table and negotiate with them. I'm going to fight for land swap deals to keep our minds open, eliminate the Social Security tax to help our seniors, and raise the Taconite homestead credit, something that has not been done since 1977, to put $300 back in the pocket of property owners. We're losing a lot of institutional knowledge with the retirement of Senator Bach and the passing of David Tomasoni. We can't take a chance on risky extreme candidates. Now more than ever, we need an experienced leader that can be a strong independent voice for us in St. Paul. I have the experience to hit the ground running on day 1 as your next state senator.
Rob Fonte.
Okay, thank you. First, I would like to thank RAMS. I'd like to thank the Mesabi Tribune, the Grand Rapids Herald for putting this on. I'd like to thank the Hibbing School District for allowing us to use this auditorium. I had to look to see what your name was because I forgot.
Okay.
I apologize. And thank you to Blythe for coming to what we believe and what we know is the best place in Minnesota to raise a family. I am Rob Farnsworth, and I am asking for your support. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up right here on the Iron Range over in Chisholm. After high school, I earned my bachelor's degree with a double major in history and social studies from the University of St. Thomas. Later on, I earned my master's degree from Mankato in special education. I've been a teacher for over 20 years, starting with the suburban school of Mounds View. It only took me a year of teaching there before I realized that is not where I wanted to be. So I moved home, began working for the Minnesota Department of Corrections up at Thistledew Camp, which is now called MCF Togo. That's a correctional facility. Back then it was for juvenile offenders. And then for the last 13 years, I have been a special ed teacher here with the Hibbing School District. So I don't know if that gives me home field advantage in something like this, but it's good to have everybody here. So when my wife and I got married, we were actually living down, well, she had moved to Red Wing, where I was living at the time. I was teaching at the correctional facility down there. I transferred from Thistledew down to Red Wing. And when we decided it was time to start a family, we knew that this is where we were going to raise our family. So I transferred back up to Thistledew. She was working as a nurse at the Mayo. She got a nursing job back up here. We packed up, moved home, and that was 15 years ago, 4 kids, and 1 red lab later. And so we're raising our children here, and I know that every politician that has children and all that says, well, yeah, I'm running because my children are my motivation. But we could have lived anywhere, and we said that this is the place that we grew up, this is the place that we want to raise our children, and we want it to be the best place for them to grow up. And unfortunately, I grew up on the range, and for the last 40-45 years, we've kind of seen steady decline. I remember when Butler Taconite closed, I was 7 or 8 years old, and I remember driving by and my parents would whisper and talk about, boy, we hope that doesn't happen to us, because my dad was a 33-year union miner at Menorca. And of course, I remember when LTV closed and the impact that has. And I think we need to realize that mining is the absolute backbone of our communities. Mining has built so much, and we need a senator that's going to support mining, that's going to appreciate what that means, that's going to fight, quite frankly, the Metro DFL that's trying to end mining in all of Minnesota. They might claim that they're only going after non-ferrous mining, but that's not true. Look at what they're doing to Mintac. And so I'm running to fight for mining, to make this the best place to raise a family, and I look forward to discussing some of the issues here that we're able to get to. Thank you.
We're going to keep moving. Because time is of the essence, and we want to cover as many topics. We'll start with Rob with this next question. We'll come back this way. Many of you said it. It is not a secret that indeed the range is losing a lot of clout in the legislature. How do you, if elected, bring more clout to the range when so much seniority has been lost? Rob.
Well, the first thing that I'll do, and it might sound kind of simple, but is I'll get elected as a Republican. And what I mean by that is the DFL has turned on mining. And if we send a Democrat senator from either 3 or 7, that helps to get a Democrat majority in St. Paul. And I just want to tell you the number 0. The number 0 is the number of pro-mining bills that the House has brought forward in the last 4 years that the DFL has controlled the House. My friend Spencer Igo is back there. He has proposed multiple pro-mining bills that were voted against by the DFL. And so just by being there, having the majority, being able to support mining. I'll also use my connections with other legislators that I know, reach out to union members. I've been a union member for I think almost 25 years now, starting when I was pushing carts at Super One for the Commercial Food Workers Union. And so, working with union people to try and create those good jobs and to work with people in St. Paul to bring that clout back and to bring people up here to realize, hey, mining is a good thing, we can do it cleanly.
Ben, how would you bring clout to the DFL on mining?
No, first and foremost, I'm running to represent this region. I'm running to represent the people that live here. And certainly, I'll work with the members of the party that endorse me, but I'll also reach across the aisle and work with Republicans that I build relationships with. The DFL is a big tent. We don't agree on everything. I have supported mining since I've been a mayor, and certainly as in my role as a county commissioner. And there hasn't been any anti-mining legislation that has moved forward. So for me, it's about getting things done. And in order to get things done, you need to be able to compromise. You need to be able to give a little and take a little. And I'm negotiating every day as a business owner. You've got to negotiate to get a deal done, to keep business moving forward. In my role as a county commissioner, I've had to work with everybody. It's a nonpartisan seat. So I've had to have the ability to build a coalition to get things done. I'm already doing that type of work. I think I'm able to have a baseline understanding with members of the DFL, but I'm also able to reach agreement with Republican legislators that we share common views on. So by getting the work done and building relationships, I think I'll be able to build that clout back.
Andre?
So I told you I'm a realtor, right? So I'm used to negotiating with buyers and sellers. I have closed over 1,000 deals in the time I've been a realtor. So that means I have worked with 2,000 people to get something done. So it's probably a little bit more than that. I am willing, able, and completely confident in being able to negotiate and just bring common sense back and get things done for our area. We need to be able to reach across the aisle, as was mentioned, but we also need to realize that there's a give and take on both sides, just like there is with buyers and sellers. I'm sure you've all bought some kind of property at some time in your life and have known that there is something you have to negotiate. So that experience, it's not conventional, but you know what? I know what it takes to get it done, and I have, as I mentioned, testified and stood behind our union members in St. Paul as well as in Washington, and then also in Wisconsin, in the neighboring state. So I am confident that I can do that and be successful.
Grant?
Yeah, my biggest thing in this race has been being an independent voice. And I worked for U.S. Senator Heidi Heitkamp, the number 50 most moderate U.S. Senator in the U.S. Senate. I was her political director. I've been at those negotiating tables between Republicans and Democrats. The big thing that I bring to the table is that I have always fought for labor. I have always fought for the trades and our union members. And we need to make sure that Minnesota is protected from what happened in Wisconsin under Republican leadership. We know that they'll introduce bills to right to work. We know that they'll tear down our union rights and the power that we have here in the Northland. And we know, my opponent is talking about her business experience. We know that Zups and Andrea's business have laid off union workers and gone to court to make sure that they don't get paid the wages that they deserve. This is the kind of senator that Andrea would be. We know that the state Senate could be ground zero for protecting women's reproductive rights and keeping the government out of the doctor's office. And we know that Ben and I are pro-mining. We know that that is good for the DFL to have pro-mining legislators in the state Senate who are going to fight for mining and also be the pro-labor, pro-trade, and pro-union people that we need representing the Northland. We can't let the Minnesota GOP and the corporate business interests of that party gain control of the House and the governorship, because we will quickly race to the bottom like Wisconsin has. So let's make sure that we're electing strong leadership on all the issues, and that's what I'll bring to the table.
The next topic is schools and local government aid. The Taconite tax currently 100% stays on the range. How do you ensure that will be the case? And what do you do to ensure that the tax revenue or state aid remains strong for the Iron Range? Andrea, we'll start with you.
Thank you. So the state aid is very huge, and that's what we need to focus on. That we're working on our schools, our children. We want to make sure everything keeps going. So the school trust funds also go for the entire state of Minnesota. And that's something that needs to also be focused on and also brought to light, because a lot of people think that, while we're up here, we're just a bunch of people that get state aid and we don't do anything. We're working very hard. The state leases bring money to the education of the entire state of Minnesota, not just our area. So those are things that need to be brought out and have a stronger voice. The local government aid. So, in our town, we got hit. We're in a mining layoff right now, and so we do get a small portion of the taconite tax. We had to cut our budget by $350,000. Actually, more than that, what came out today. So, when you're a small town, that really hits you hard. And where do you start cutting off? Do you start cutting off services? You can't. We have the layoff status. It's going to be hitting people in the hardest times in November. They're going to be going on, their unemployment is wrapping up. And then also it's Christmas time, it's heating time, the most expensive times of the year. And so these are things that we have big concerns about, on top of pressures of going to school. How are you going to make your bills? How are you going to pay your bills? So those are all things that we have to work together, and while giving government money to everyone isn't necessarily the answer, but there needs to be something done, realizing that these hardships are approaching the district. It's not just one town, it's a couple towns, it's the people that work for those companies that are laid off as well. So that's what I plan on doing.
Grant, how do you ensure that the taconite tax stays dedicated to range communities and that local government aid stays at the level or increases for range communities?
Well, I mean, the first thing we do is that we make sure, again, that the Minnesota Republicans don't gain control of the legislature and the governorship, because we know the last time that the taconite tax was tried to take to fill in budget deficits was under the governorship of Tim Pawlenty and the Republicans. And so first and foremost, I would be the biggest champion for our taconite taxes. I know that the Doug Johnson Fund has, $160 million that go towards economic development in our Northland communities. It's critical that we ensure that continues. We know that our local schools get a major amount of support from our Taconite taxes, and we have to protect them. Local government aid is really personal for me because, unbeknownst to many, Hermantown gets $0 in local government aid. I worked with Senator Tom Bach and Representative Mary Murphy to fight for Hermantown's local government aid in the tax bill to have $100,000 a year. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about community of the size like we have up here, that makes all the difference in the world. We need to make sure we're protecting the pay down on our property taxes here on the Iron Range. So we have a lot to defend, and we need to make sure that the Minnesota GOP does not try to raid those funds like they have in the past.
Rob Farnsworth, how do you ensure the taconite tax stays dedicated to the range? And where do you stand on keeping local government aid?
Well, of course, nobody up here can make any promises, but I'm going to fight to make sure that the taconite tax stays up here on the range where it belongs. Something else that I would look at is the Permanent School Trust Fund. Now, a lot of people don't realize that, but 90% of the Permanent School Trust Fund comes from taconite mining. About 5% comes from logging, which is also mostly in northern Minnesota, and then another 5% is from land sales. The biggest contributor currently to the trust fund is Mintac. Every single Twin Cities school gets more money from the Permanent School Trust Fund than the Mountain Iron School District. The school district in Minneapolis gets more money from the Permanent School Trust Fund than every single Iron Range school combined. So I think we definitely need to look at making those dollars local. And I happened to have a night of light reading the other day where I was perusing the state constitution, and I discovered that actually the way you disperse the trust fund is up to the legislature. So that is something that we could look at doing. And then, of course, local government aid. As a conservative, I believe that spending money locally is money that is spent more wisely. And so I do support an increase in local government aid. I believe that in the tax bill that didn't get passed in the last session, there was $60 million that was allocated to increase local government aid. And I think that's a good thing, particularly for greater Minnesota communities.
Denucci? Same question.
Well, having worked in local government, I know how absolutely critical the taconite production tax monies, as well as local government aid, county public aid, payment in lieu of taxes, is to our communities. I put together a city budget. It's easy to find expenses. It's very difficult to find revenue. Same thing at the county level. County program aid helps us keep people's property taxes down. It's the same thing there. Easy to find expenses, tough to find revenue. The way we do that is to protect our agencies like the IRRB, who disperse these funds out. And I agree with Grant. There is a real risk in this election of electing Republicans that will go after the money in the Doug Johnson Fund, that will, again, try to raid the IRRB. That would be disastrous to our communities. The money, that's our money. That's our money, and it goes a long way to helping our communities, our schools, our local businesses. We need to do everything we can to protect that fund. As far as local government aid, we need to send legislators to St. Paul that are going to get the work done. We've got a $9 billion surplus. It's going to be closer to $10 billion. We have monies for local government aid. The city of Virginia relies on local government aid. It's $8 million to their budget. We need to be able to send legislators to St. Paul that are going to get the work done to bring back our fair share of that aid to the Iron Range. And the last thing I'll say is, regarding payment in lieu of taxes, it is totally unfair that the Metro receives a higher rate of PILT, has a lower percentage of land that's eligible for PILT, when we here have a much greater percent of land available for PILT payment, but we receive a lower payment for it. We got to have people there that are getting the work done to be able to make sure we're getting our fair share.
Sounds good. I'll bring that message back. Ben, we're going to stay with you just to keep rotating in fairness of first and second. You mentioned the IRRR. Do you support the current structure, or are there any changes, and what changes do you support to the IRRR?
The IRRB is so important to us here for a number of different reasons. Not only helping local businesses receive grants to expand and loans to buy new equipment, but our communities to be able to fund improvements, investments in infrastructure. I support overall the structure currently of the IRRB. I would say there's a few improvements we can make. The IRRB has funds that go towards education through collaboration and technology. And the agency has at times wanted to get out of the business of education. I disagree. I think we should lean into assisting our schools and our communities through improving their physical structures and school equipment through those funds. I also think that small communities under population 1,000 have a tougher time competing for funds at the agency. I would really push towards making an account that is solely for communities under population 1,000.
Rob Farnsworth, any changes to the IRRB and or the current structure?
That's a good question. I think the first thing that we need to look at in regards to the IRRB is how successful they've been in regards to their purpose. And their purpose is to, in general, is to diversify our economy so that we're not as reliant on mining jobs, although we have to recognize that mining is still the backbone of our economy. And so we can look back, I mean, when I was a kid, right here in Hibbing, they built this great big factory over in Brooklyn called the Chopsticks Factory. I think they maybe made 2,000 chopsticks out of there, and that was IRRB funded. The building has been sold multiple times over the years. Not sure who owns it now. We can look at other examples like Excelsior Energy over on the West Range. Tens of millions of dollars were blown without a shovel even getting into the ground. And of course, the most notable example would be the money that went to SR, where they strung us along, and they still have, you know, an SR-related group still has those leases tied up in court that could potentially cost other mines life, basically. So I think we have to look at the successes and maybe not try and hit a home run, but look at, okay, how can we increase jobs in non-mining related areas, you know, in smaller ways, you know, hit a single, hit a double now and then. And then the other thing that I would like to see, I'm also a realtor, I forgot to mention that, that's how I first met Andrea. We have a housing crisis across the country, and particularly we have it here on the Iron Range for a couple of areas. We need more single-family homes. And the IRRB could be a huge partner in helping us develop building lots, helping us, you know, entice builders to build single-family homes. And think about it, if we could get, as a realtor, I've had a number of people just in the last 2 years that have called and said, hey, can we, you know, we want to move up to the range, it's safe, you have good schools, you have good health care, can you help us find a house? Imagine if we were to build 200 homes across the Iron Range, and those people from the cities moved up because they're able to work from home. That's like a brand new factory, and they're going to shop in our stores, they're going to eat in our restaurants. And the other thing that I think that they could shift focus to is senior housing. As I've been knocking at doors, I think I hit door number 4,000 earlier this week. A lot of senior citizens have said, hey, we're ready to get out of our house, but there's nowhere to go. So if we want to get into senior housing, we're going to have to move out of the area. And so I think that IRRB could help with that by working with developers to build senior housing so our seniors can stay here, and especially after we get rid of that ridiculous tax on the Social Security benefits, which Democrats have voted against time and again, by the way. And they're going to be able to stay on the range, have more money in their pocket, and still live on their own in a townhome or a twin home or something like that. So I think that's a direction that the IRRB could look at going.
Grant, we'll start with you and then we'll go to Andrea. Thoughts about the IRRB, what it needs to keep and what it needs to change.
Yeah, I thought Ben and Rob covered it well. Lots of issues for us to focus on with the IRRB. I think one of the big things is that Senate District 3 and Senate District 7 would have a place at the table when it comes to the IRRB. One thing that I didn't hear mentioned was investments in clean energy technology. I think that is something we really need to look at with the IRRB. We know that the effects of climate change are here, and so I would very much like to find ways for us to make those types of investments. I know that Senator Tomassoni had a project like that in our region, so we need to continue focusing on that and making sure we're addressing those issues. That said, the tax bill has been brought up a couple different times, and I want to address that, because we know that the elimination of Social Security, income taxes is in that bill. We know that an increase to local government aid and the formula that would support our Northland communities is in that bill. We know that historic tax relief for middle-class families in a time when they need it most is in that bill. And Senate Republicans and Senator Jeremy Miller, the majority leader, walked away from that deal. They signed it, the governor signed it, Speaker Hortman signed it, and Senator Jeremy Miller signed it. I have a copy. And they walked away from that deal during this time when we need relief most. And I think that's really telling. One of my top issues is looking at eliminating the tax on Social Security income tax. So the idea that Rob brought up is completely nonsense. This is something that is critically important. Folks on fixed income should not be taxed twice. And it's something we need to fight for. But local government aid and support for families is critical as well. And Republicans should be ashamed that they walked away from that deal.
We'll bring it back to the IRRB. Andrea, your thoughts on the IRRB?
We're talking about the IRRB, right?
We were.
Okay. So in regards to the IRRB, they have been absolutely wonderful as far as Zoops has been concerned. Zoops, the grocery store. Grant, you weren't here then, but Zoops had to close the Aurora store because of the mining layoffs. 2 of the stores happened to burn down, ironically enough. And the IRRB has been always very good to help and be able to help them get back on their feet again. So I appreciate their concern and their assistance with local businesses. Other changes in the IRRB, I think maybe we need to put some skin in the game when there are loans being put out there for groups that want to, open up a business or an office, let's say in Ely, and they're buying a building, and then all of a sudden a couple years later they sell it for a good profit using IRRB money. I think there should be some sort of, some kind of give and take on that one. If they sell it before X amount of years, then whatever money they received for that building, that should go back, because that money was used for mining, or that money that they used was mining money, whether their building was mining related or not, or maybe perhaps against mining. But that should come back. I do it with my kids. I'm like, you know what, we'll give you this much, but you have to put this much forward too. So it's a matter of, again, common sense. How it's your money. How would you want your money spent? Would you want your money just given away? Would you want your money just going out of the area? No, you want to be sure that people are invested in your community, as Zoops has been, and any layoffs with Union probably was just because the stores burned down and they placed them in other stores. But the Zoops has always been very concerned about their employees, as well as the IRRB has been too. So the only change I can really think about that I would probably want to see the IRRB do is if this, then that. So there's more skin in the game for whoever's getting the money.
We'll move forward. The topic is non-ferrous mining. Do you support it, and how do you bring your support or your opposition to St. Paul and advocate for it? We'll start with Rob Farnsworth.
Before I talk about that, because this is going to be pretty quick, I just want to point out, Grant's new here from North Dakota, so possibly hasn't read the Minnesota Constitution. All tax bills start with the House. So the Senate had an agreement on all of these tax bills. The DFL-controlled House didn't pass them. So you're new, we'll give you a pass on that one. And then as far as the thing about Social Security, it's nonsense. I don't know how it's nonsense. It's been on record over and over that the DFL has voted against it. At the most recent DFL convention, somebody proposed to a plank to their platform that would suggest getting rid of the tax on Social Security benefits 67% of DFL activists voted against it, which I think is kind of nonsense that they're voting against our seniors. As far as non-ferrous, I support non-ferrous. I support twin metals. I support polymet, tech. All of these, they have the opportunity to bring the resources that we need for a modern economy. They have the opportunity to bring a lot of jobs, and I can't remember the second part of your question.
How do you advocate for that in the Twin Cities with the legislature?
I think the way we advocate is that we get people up there. It blew my mind when I did the polymet tour, and they explained how there's already currently sulfides leaching from the I'm going to forget on the word here. The drain field, basically. I can't think of the word. After polymet starts, they're going to get drain tile around that, so there won't be anything leaching, so it'll actually be cleaner when they start production than it is now. Twin metals is going to be at least 400 and up to 5,000 feet underground, so hundreds and probably thousands of feet below the water line. And I think if we can just get people up there to see what the project is, that will really get rid of a lot of the resistance.
Denucci.
I support precious metal mining. I have supported precious metal mining ever since I was a RAMS member. It's important to our local economy that we continue to expand these types of mining projects. We have a process that needs to be followed. And nobody, just because you're pro-mining doesn't mean you're anti-environment. We want these projects to follow the process and be done safely. But it's not a process if it takes 20 years to get the project to move forward. I would definitely seek legislation that would streamline the process for permitting of these types of projects. As far as how do I advocate for the project, I think the approach we're taking, where we are just beating ourselves over the head and each other's heads and constantly fighting about this topic is not bringing us anywhere. Look, we need to think globally, but mine locally. We all want to move into a green environment. The onset of electric cars, we all want cell phones and iPads, and we want to build wind turbines to have a cleaner environment. We need precious metals to be able to do that. So instead of choosing to have the ethics of pushing the development of these types of projects in third world countries, where they use child labor, they do not have an EPA, an OSHA, an MSHA, why not do it here, where we can do it safer and better than anyone else in the world, using the world's greatest workforce.
Andrea?
So I agree with that. We have an amazing workforce, a very skilled workforce. We don't want to see this workforce leave. I was a sub at the school for, 6 or 7 years, and that was one thing that I spoke with the kids about. What do you want to do when you graduate? Where do you want to go? I can tell you right now, about 80% of them said, we don't want to leave here, but there aren't any jobs here for us. And they wanted to have families. They wanted to build their home within the community that they grew up in. And that's something that really struck with me. And it's always resonated with me because I see my own children. My son's at the U of M down in Minneapolis. I'm worried about him. My twins are up here working, and my third daughter lives up here too, right across the street from us, and I'm able to watch my grandson grow. It's really enriching, and to see those people say they don't want to leave, that really tugs at my strings. So I want to make sure that continues to happen, that we're able to have these sustaining jobs for these people to come here. Tourism is great, no doubt about it. It can go hand in hand, as we have done for all these years. It can go hand in hand. We have some of the cleanest water. We've already proved to people that we have the cleanest water up here. We're doing it right. And when I see legislators from down in the Twin Cities telling us what to do with our water, I really think that they need to mind their own bobber. And those of you all up here know that saying. They need to pay attention to their own areas because they've got worse water than what we have up here. And we've been doing mining and tourism together, hand in hand, for 150 years. with not the technology that we have now. We need to be the leaders that we are meant to be with the God-given minerals that we have.
Grant, your position on non-ferrous mining and how you advocated for it in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, so I think everybody said what I think we all think. I support these projects. I support the objective process that's used to analyze these projects. And I think bringing that independent voice that I've been advocating for to St. Paul would be huge for the mining industry and for this issue. I addressed climate change earlier, and our unions. We need to make sure that we have the minerals we need to address climate change. We need the union jobs of the future that are going to employ people in our region. I want to talk about Andrea's earlier statement about ZUBs and the IRRB. Andrea, it sounds like, accepted some public money and yet laid off union workers. That's not right. If the IRRB or a business is getting money from a public entity, then to me, we should make sure that we're supporting a union workforce. That's part of my core values. It's what we believe up here in the Iron Range. And so, that I think is important. I'm supported by every single labor and trade organization on the Iron Range and in the Northland, including the building trades. They know who I am. They know where I stand. They know that I'll fight for workers' rights and the projects that are important for them. And I think that speaks for itself.
I want to shift to recreation and infrastructure for recreation. What types of projects should the state support through bonding and other funding when it comes to recreation? And we'll start with you, Grant.
We live in one of the areas that's the most visited part of our state. It's the most beautiful part of Minnesota and our entire region. In fact, some of the areas in our area are the most visited in the country. So, fighting for our outdoor recreation, fighting for hunting, fighting for all of those things is critically important. ATV trails, paved trails, our outdoors, that is something that is really the reason my wife and I moved here. I know it's funny. It's, oh my gosh, I was born somewhere else. I can't believe I chose to be born somewhere else. What matters is that I chose to live here. I chose to raise my son and daughter here. My wife and I chose to have our careers here. If we're going to grow, if we're going to be a community that is prosperous, we need people to choose the Northland, and that's what I do. So for Andrea to attack me for choosing to live here and raise my kids here, I think is unfair. And so I will always fight for our region and the things that matter most to us and why people choose to live and visit here.
Andrea, the question is, how do we invest in more recreation, and what is the state's role in investing in recreation and infrastructure on the Iron Range?
Well, the state has already been investing in this area, and for the record, Grant, I'm not from here also. I've lived up here 30 years, so I've also chosen to live here also and raise my family. So thank you for pointing that out, but I've been here a bit longer. The state has helped the city of Babbitt. We are expanding into the RV park campground, which is amazing. They've helped us previously with our public landing, which is also great. And I really like seeing that all the ATVs that are coming around. I see them constantly because I'm always on the road. The bike trails, the way they're reclaiming the mines, which is super, because that's how they're always done. They need to figure out what they're going to do with the mine before it even opens. So the state understands that there's always a plan ahead. And so I can appreciate the forethought and the planning that goes into all that, because a lot of people don't see that ahead of time. But yeah, that's what I think is really fantastic. So not only to make this area grow as far as recreation goes, because that increases tourism, but then also helping the district go into another avenue, which we can expand on. So I appreciate that.
Ben, your thoughts? Recreation and how the state should invest further in infrastructure.
These types of investment are a huge quality of life issue for us here. and as well as a huge boom to our local economies. Everybody nowadays has an ATV or a side-by-side, and mountain biking has become increasingly popular. That's what people like to do up here. You know, we work hard here, we play hard here, and part of that is getting out in the outdoors, getting on your mountain bike or on your side-by-side, and riding the trails. There's a definite benefit to this as our local businesses reap the benefits of trail systems that are expanded and developed and connected. As a small business owner, I know when that group of side-by-sides or snowmobiles shows up, boy, it's gonna help make your week. It's gonna help you keep the lights on. It's gonna help you pay your bills. It's good for our local economies. So that being said, I support all of the ways that bonding can be used to improve campgrounds, boat landings, trail systems. I've worked to create a snowmobile trail that connects Nashwauk and Keewatin. I've worked to create an ATV trail that connects Nashwauk with the main trail. And I've been able to allocate or go out and get funds that will plan for a 7-mile mountain bike trail to hopefully someday be built in the city of Nashwauk. I know how important these types of endeavors are. I've worked on them. And I think there's a real desire for cities, counties, and even states to expand and connect. We want to go to different places and see different sites. We want different cities' populations to come to our cities and spend a few bucks while doing it. So again, I support any way we can use monies to expand and help our tourism industry.
Rob, question is, where and how should the state invest in recreation infrastructure for the range?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is say that the funding that goes to trails is disproportionate. Well, maybe not disproportionately going to the Metro, to the Met Council. And I think you look at the legacy funding, I think the split is 40-40-20. So Met Council, I think it's 40, we get 40, and I can't remember where the other 20 goes. And I think that we, in greater Minnesota, that have thousands and thousands of more miles of trails, we deserve more of that legacy funding. And anecdotally, here's the evidence. Go to Hinckley on any Friday, any day of any week of the year, and stand on the bridge and count how many vehicles you see coming north with side-by-sides or snowmobiles or boats or whatever. And then count the number of cars going the other way for people that want to go use the trails down in Minneapolis. People aren't going to Minneapolis to use their trails. People from Minneapolis are coming here to use our trails, and yet they get more money. Somebody, I think it was Ben that mentioned, they get more money for Hiawatha Falls from PILT, payment in lieu of taxes. We have far more state land that we don't get any property taxes on. We should be getting way more of that PILT money. Senator Bach actually was working on legislation, if the tax bill had been passed, that would have increased I think by 10, I have it written down here, $10 million, $2.2 million would have gone just to St. Louis County. And we can use that along, legacy money, increased bill money, along with the resources of the IRRB to continue to add to our world-class trail system. And one last thing, so the bike trail over in Chisholm, that they just opened, I think, a year or two ago. As of June this year, I believe, they were up to 35,000 people that had already come through there. And a lot of those people that are coming to our area, using our hotels, eating at our restaurants, that is a good thing for us to use the mines that the Metro is like, oh, look at how you've polluted the mines. What are you talking about? Look at your own city that you allowed to burn for 2 days. That's a lot more pollution than we've had at the mines. And we're able to reclaim those for really good recreational use, world-class recreational use.
It's time to wrap up. I know that you all have another event to go to, and we have some House candidates who've been patiently waiting. So we have about 7 minutes. In your closing remark, how do you get your work done without special session? We'll start with you, Rob, and we'll come right down the line.
How do we get our work done without special session?
If you're a legislator.
If I'm a legislator. Well, Tom Bach has actually kind of set the example. So we needed a legislative session to deal with the Canisteo pit problem. And for those who don't know, the Canisteo pit is like this close to starting to boil over and flood the city of Bovee. And so they were able to use loans from the IRRB. Now don't get me wrong, nobody thinks that this is a good idea. When I talked to Senator Bach about it, he's like, I don't want this to be a precedent, this is not our problem. But that's one of the resources that we can use until we get back into legislative session to repay the IRRB of those funds. But we just have to get creative because, I mean, at this point, it's looking like the governor is not going to call a special session until possibly after the election. So we're just going to have to work together and roll up our sleeves and get the work done.
Ben?
I think it's going to be hard to get any type of work done without a special session. You know, the special session is needed. You know, when you think about this area, we need a bonding bill. Our infrastructure up throughout the district is crumbling. It's at an age where it's past its useful life. We need legislators that are going to support bonding bills to replace our aged infrastructure. I think that we need to continue to push to see if we can get a special session. It puts our communities at a huge disadvantage. Not being able to have local government aid, not being able to provide relief, not being able to help fund our schools. I think it's going to be a challenge for sure.
Andrea?
Okay, thank you. So just like Rob mentioned, the Aurora, there's a similar situation going on in Aurora right now. And they are also very close to overflowing, not as close as the Canisteo pit. But you know what? That's what makes Rangers so awesome, is they're all willing to pitch in and do what it takes to make sure that this doesn't happen. They know there's going to be an end in the future, but they know this needs to happen now. Similar situation is the layoffs right now. I can't tell you how many people are already facing layoffs, the unemployment benefits running out at the end of November, or October, I'm sorry, and already saying, what do you need to get done? We are here to help you. We need to get this done. So they see these emergencies and they're not going to sit around and say, yeah, we're just going to wait till we're back at work. That's what makes the Iron Range so amazing. These people are here and they're ready to work and do what it takes to get it done without having that dollar sign in front of them. The projects that we have ahead, they're great. They have time limits. Stuff needs to happen. Unfortunately, that has to be on the back burner until the special session happens. So until then, it's business as usual, and you know it's going to happen, but that's the perseverance of the Iron Rangers.
Grant?
A special session is critical. It's one of the biggest things that I've been pushing for since announcing my candidacy. Our North Shore miners need relief now, not come February. Their unemployment insurance will end soon. Our communities need a bonding bill. We have several projects that communities like mine in Hermantown are relying on from a bonding bill. Word on the street is that a bonding bill only proposal was proposed and the Republicans declined it. That is irresponsible and ridiculous. We need to make sure that we're pushing as hard as we possibly can to get a special session because it's all on the table right now. Our families need relief right now when they need it most. Our seniors need the elimination of that double tax on Social Security. And, Andrea, I haven't heard her once. She's in her second decade as a politician on the range, and not once have I heard her advocate for a special session. She's in the party with Senator Jeremy Miller. Why isn't she asking and demanding that a special session be made for the North Shore miners in her community? This is getting ridiculous. So I will always fight for our region. I will always speak out, and I will be an advocate to get the job done and just deliver for our Northland communities.
I want to thank everyone, thank our candidates, thank RAMS, thank the Mesabi Tribune, and thank Hibbing Public Access and Schools. We're going to take about a 5-10 minute break, and then we'll have our House candidates here. Thanks, guys.